Hey there. You'll see the second picture of the jungle that I talked about in the last video in Costa Rica that I'm always talking about and doing my reflections on earlier in my journey. So I want to show you another picture. So this is for entertainment purposes only. I know you get sick of this disclaimer. I do too. I'm not a lawyer. I'm not an expert. I'm not a mental health expert, nor do I claim to be. So use your own discernment. I'm just sharing my journey, and what you make of it is yours. And reach out for support if you need support throughout this process. So, with my new focus, my news of not getting the NSF grant, and my new focus on both my lifestyle and global divine alchemy, I realized that I needed to spend some thoughtful time launching into this newer journey with my relationship with the abundance. I can't talk. I say that a lot, I know. With abundance. And what I mean by that is, I really wanted to go into this defining what success looked like to me so I could put in my order to the universe, and my relationship with money and how it was formed so that I could understand the programming that I needed to keep and the programming that I needed to reprogram, as I call it, to make sure that I was stuck with what I wanted next. So it was super sticky and definitive and thoughtful and matched what I wanted moving forward in my life. I really looked at, hey, what have like society systems told me? Get a good traditional job and stay there. That's what I was always told by my parents, first and foremost, and other people in my life. And I kind of always bucked that system. It didn't really make sense to me. Like, it just wasn't me. It didn't feel authentic. But I went back and forth on that when I get scared as an entrepreneur, as a single entrepreneur. Entrepreneurship's scary, right? You've got your ups and downs. I grew up watching my dad work long hours, especially after my parents got divorced. He was a workaholic, tried and true, with no life. He just thought that's what you do. And while that didn't really resonate with me, I could see that he did it. And it kind of was deeply embedded in my subconscious. I consistently had pressure with perceptions from the people around me. Why aren't you settling down in one place and taking a job at Disney? Now, there's nothing wrong with Disney. It's just the antithesis of my dream job. In fact, I've worked with some clients from Disney. They're great, great people. I also heard, why aren't you using your MBA? I don't have the heart to tell people that running a business is a crash course on getting an MBA, let alone using your MBA. I use it every day. But, people who don't understand don't understand. I also got, who do you think you are? You're, effing Mother Teresa. Why don't you chase money instead of focusing on helping people? Again, that really wasn't my definition of success. And while I had followed that intuition over the years, I really wanted to be thoughtful about how that showed up, along with making sure that I was determining success on my terms and being abundant in the process with a fully abundant life. Most of my friend group had traditional careers, 9 to 5, no entrepreneurship. Actually, I think all of them, as I'm thinking back. And honestly, part of my ego, part of my identity, I was proud of being a hustler. I had always picked myself up from my bootstraps, made it my own. I had made it every step of the way with my blood, sweat, tears, and fears. I forced it. I powered through it. You guys have heard this from me before. But I didn't really have anyone to depend on. It was all me. Not that most people have anybody to depend on, but I really didn't let anything get me down low. I wore it like a badge of honor, kind of part of my who I was. And I really thought through that and what it meant to be a hustler, and what not necessarily how society defines it, but what was I making it mean, right? I was proud of it throughout my life for survival. I survived because I was a hustler. As a kid, I got multiple jobs to pay for clothes. I went to a private school. They don't really have high school in the Middle East, Saudi Arabia. And, well, they do, but it's British curriculum. Long story. So, everyone there was fairly well off, or most people were fairly well off. And I had much shittier clothes than everyone there. And I was feeling like an outcast. I worked summer jobs to pay for my own clothes. Again, not a big deal. But it made an impression on me. I really felt like I couldn't depend on anybody. So working 3 jobs through school, I talked about it in my last video. And then having a college payment, my parents had committed to paying X amount per year. And they pulled out, that was pulled out from under me. And I had to drop out of school for a semester at the last minute. I understood why. But that really framed that survival mode kicked in. And then in grad school, to get my MBA, I worked full-time and went to grad school full-time. So again, it really was years and years and years and years of me programming by inferences from society, by family, by friends in some cases, and also kind of how I defined myself. And then multiple times throughout my entrepreneurship journey, when I got scared as an entrepreneur and went back to get a job, I got tons of kudos for my titles. Took some big jobs. I was the youngest assistant dean at a top university ever. I was, important in the government at some point. Again, I didn't really care about title. I still don't care about title. I work with people with big, crazy titles that aren't very happy sometimes. And so it didn't validate me. It validated me for a while. It gave me a hit of justification, but it wasn't my authentic self. And so I really had trouble and struggle with articulating to people why I was an entrepreneur, or helping them understand my nomad ways, which I'm sure I'll talk about it in a different video. But what made me me was a unique set of things that didn't really fit in a little box in a nice little tidy package. And because I'd get scared, or because I felt like I was trying to justify it to people, when sometimes I was scared as hell, it really was hard for them to understand why I was doing it. Not that in retrospect now, I don't really give a shit if people understand. But at the time, it really bothered me. Even when I fully embraced entrepreneurship, as I wanted longer vacations and didn't know what I was doing or didn't have any role models, I just jumped into entrepreneurship with both feet. It was different because I decided I wanted to work remotely, and it took me years and years to figure that out, because at the time I was doing it, God, it was over 15 years ago, maybe longer now. It just wasn't done in the US at least. And so I didn't really have a foundational hey, this is how it's done. So I was just trying to figure it out as I was going along. And then I always supplemented with part-time gigs just to make absolutely sure that I could survive and be okay. But instead of manifesting all the potential pros and the upside of being an entrepreneur, I was really focused on the cons. I was working my ass off, not taking the vacations, planning all the time and the upside for the downside. And I wasn't really able to enjoy the whole reason I was becoming an entrepreneur in the first place. I also used to get scared too. Now I'm past it, obviously, if I'm telling you about this in the video. But, I would contract with firms where it had a lot of quantity, right? But the pay, because there's a lot of quantity, was way less. So I would fill my calendar with the less, more clients that paid less, despite being consistently ranked as a top global coach, because I was scared to jump off the cliff and say, no more, I'm not going to fill my calendar. I'm just going to focus on my private clients and word of mouth and referrals, because I was scared not to have that soft safety net. I always diluted my private practice. And by the time the day was over, because I was taking 8-9 clients a day, which other coaches tell me is crazy, but as you can tell from my hustler identity. It wasn't a big deal to me. I was drained. So any attempts at like creativity or other gigs or trying something new, I was just energetically exhausted, as I now understand. Although at the time I didn't really know what that was. And as I was meeting with C-level execs on a daily basis, they'd always give me feedback that my work in contracting with outplacement firms was wasted, and why wasn't I doing more on my private practice? Fair point, but it took a while to sink in. I stuck myself in that situation for years. I was so scared to jump off the cliff. I realize now, well, at this point in my journey, that I was coming from a mentality of lack and fear, and I was manifesting that subconsciously. So as I thought through my plan for Global Divine Alchemy, how I defined success, what it looked like, what was I going to do, how was I going to get there, I really was planned about learning how to flow, redefining abundance with money. Sure, you need to pay your bills, but also what was abundance in my life, right? What did an abundant life look like? It was traveling, it was time, it was hiking, it was creativity, it was all of the things that make sense for me for abundance. Yes, money was included in that, right? But it was a very different take on what abundance looked like and what success for me, and only me, looked like. Again, I can label it today as my little karmic lesson. But it took me reflecting on that to understand what I was really doing to myself. So I hope as you're watching this video, you reflect on what does success and abundance mean to you? And where are you getting in the way? You can only control what you can control, right? But for you, what does it look like? Until next time, have a great week.